So once we've sort of uncovered what we believe we need to know in order to sell them, then we'll start a presentation and we'll have a PowerPoint that is a guide, but we will typically customize it in the way we present it to speak to their needs, their unique needs. So, start out by telling who we are. MyECheck is the pioneer of fully electronic check. We are the leader in electronic check technology. We offer the fastest, safest, and most cost-effective payment method in America. That's a pretty powerful statement. Why would you want to use electronic checks? Well, an estimated 18.3 billion checks were paid in 2012 with a value of $26 trillion. And while paper checks have declined, electronic checks have increased by 13%. And e-checks are available to more consumers and businesses than any other electronic payment method. So, what we offer is a variety of services around electronic checks. I'm not going to read the slides, so there could be some slack on this one. So obviously we have mobile payments. We offer e-commerce, web payments. We do custom development. We have business-to-business transactions and government payments. We have leading-edge technology, including check authorization, check guarantee. And I would probably expand on all of these, but just to keep this kind of thing moving along. One of the main benefits is that our system, over ACH, is that it works with all banks and all accounts, and ACH doesn't. So often we're being compared with ACH, and so we sell to the benefits of Check 21 electronic checks versus ACH. And so we'll talk about the fact that it works with more banks, it clears faster, the rules are a lot less and more friendly, less likely to be reversed. Okay, so the services that we offer for web services are fully electronic check service, and that's our standard service without any check authorizations. We offer that service with check authorization for an additional fee. The check authorization validates the user's identity and their bank account. It also checks their check bouncing history, if you will, if they have any outstanding bounce checks. With respect to the checking account verifications, it verifies that the account's open, it's in good standing, doesn't have any overdrafts, it's not, it currently has a positive balance, doesn't have any stop payments on it. So if everything looks good and there's no reason to decline the transaction, the system will approve the transaction. We also offer a guarantee service. Most people don't take it because, honestly, it's a little cost prohibitive. It's not that it's expensive, but we just don't have a lot of fraud, so there's not a lot of risk. The fraud can be managed with this check authorization and rules. An example of rules is if you operate a mobile wallet and somebody deposits the money in today, you don't give them availability on the money until tomorrow. And that way, if the check bounced, you'll know before you give them credit. That's an example of a rule. So you can incorporate a lot of rules and a lot of technology and then totally secure the transaction to a negligible amount of fraud. When I say negligible amount, there's always fraud with transactions, and if the cost of fraud is less than the cost of the fraud control tools, then you have a negligible amount of fraud. All right. So some of the features that we offer is it's the fastest transaction clearing of any payment method. The electronic check rules eliminate chargebacks. You can't. After the transaction, the customer can't call their bank and reverse this. They can with an ACH or a credit card. So a merchant will often lose their money after the sale. Again, it works with 100% of accounts. ACH is participation only. So banks have to voluntarily participate in ACH. Otherwise, an ACH won't work on their account. A lot of accounts are ineligible for ACH. For example, brokerage accounts are ineligible, or government accounts are ineligible. accounts are turned off for ACH capability, so you can't debit those accounts with an ACH transaction. So our system is the only system that I work with all checking accounts without exception. It also offers the highest level of security. The product in and of itself is more secure, but also with our fraud control technologies, it's the most secure payment method. It's also the lowest cost. I mean, our fees per transaction are very, very low, but even if our fees were really high, it would still be lower cost because we clear more transactions and have fewer failed transactions. So people clear more money using our system. Benefits, it increases sales, increases loyalty. The loyalty part is like a lot of people don't have cards or credit cards, but they do have checks, so they prefer to pay by check. And not everybody takes checks. So if a company takes checks and the customer is a check user, they'll be more loyal to that merchant. It lowers abandonment. If somebody adds checks and they're, for example, just take credit cards on their website, if they're declined on their card, that's it. They're done. The transaction's over. But if they also have checks, they get declined on their card, maybe they get approved for a check, and they get processed on a check. So clear more transactions. Again, the costs are lower. Compared to any transaction system, any other payment method, we're always lower cost, always. And all the above, of course, increases profitability. Is there a link in here for that? Yeah. Okay, so the way I went through this presentation is really not the way I would normally do it with a customer, but it's close. We have a mock merchant site. It's a demo site, and this site basically illustrates a web services transaction on our system. It sells anvils online. So I'm going to buy 15 anvils. So I'm going to load my shopping cart and click to check out. And so the shopping cart will total my order of 15 anvils and give me various payment options. So I'm going to choose MyECheck. I'm going to pay by MyECheck.
I'm going to barter with the chickens.
So what you're presented with here is in this case, is a blank check, but the merchant is free to present any form they want. It doesn't have to look like a check, but a check is good because people are familiar with it. It's not anything new that they have to figure out how to do. So the amount of information that we collect is consistent with what they would provide in a credit card or an ACH transaction. So it's not any more difficult or cumbersome to fill out this form than if they were filling out an ACH or a credit card form. This isn't that right. Okay, so the customer fills out basically their name and address, their bank name, bank routing number. Now, we have a utility running in the background of this website that makes it so you have to enter a valid routing number. If you don't enter a valid routing number, it won't let you move forward. That looks like a routing number, but it's not valid. That last digit is supposed to be 7. That's a valid routing number. So that's a mathematical formula that just kind of calculates if it fits the criteria of a routing number. Whoops. The account numbers we don't validate online, on the website. That data has to come to us first, and then we go out and validate the identity and the bank account information. So a consumer would fill that out. Again, it takes about the same amount of time to fill out a credit card form. They would agree to the terms and conditions of the merchant, not us, because we're not a part of this transaction. This is a transaction between a consumer and a merchant. They authorize the check. They'll give it an opportunity to review one last time and maybe go back and make an edit. Click continue again. everything looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and process it. That actually hit our live server or a live demo server and return a response. So that's the amount of time it actually takes to return a real transaction. So our test server sent back various responses. These are just example responses. This one had an error in the phone field, so that would, in the case of that transaction, data would go back to the merchant system, notifying them that there was an error in the fields. The merchant system might then represent that field to the consumer to recollect that information and resubmit the transaction. Otherwise, it will be either approved or declined if they're using the check authorization. If they're not using the check authorization, it'll just automatically process. And the customer might get a response like this from the merchant. Now, one of the benefits of our solution versus an ACH is that the customer actually gets a check in their bank statement. And you don't in an ACH. You get a line item which maybe has 12 characters describing the transaction. So customers often don't recognize the transaction, will call their bank and say, I didn't authorize that, and the bank has to reverse it by law. So first of all, there's no law that pertains to that in our case. Second of all, there's so much information on the check that customers always know what the transaction is for. And the customer can put a variety of additional information on the face of the check, or excuse me, the merchant can. So for example, down in this memo field, they could put a whole host of information like security information, authorization codes, IP address, what the customer purchased, their customer support number. If you have any troubles, call this number. So they're not calling the bank trying to reverse it. It's here's what you bought, here's what you paid for, here's our proof that you authorized it. Call us if you have any problems. That's what it should be. It should be between the consumer and the merchant. Consumers shouldn't be able to call their bank and go, I don't remember that. You better just reverse it. That's not fair to the merchant. This is a much fairer system. So merchants prefer this. And merchants are the ones that drive adoption of payment systems. For example, if I'm a merchant and I sell glasses or whatever, I can determine what kind of payment methods I take. I can take credit cards or I can take electronic checks. I don't have to take cards. So most of our merchants will have both, but in any event, they will always clear more transactions faster, more safely, and keep more of their money for a lower cost when they use MyECheck. So that's essentially the demo that we give to the customers, and it has about a 80% closing commission, or 85%. Most customers, when they see that, see the demo and the demonstration, want the product. And then it just becomes a matter of, can they implement it? A lot of times customers will sign up, merchants will sign up, and it's just, they have to coordinate with their IT departments and so on and so forth to get integrated, and that takes time, or never happens sometimes. So not everybody that we sign up actually ends up going live. Probably will know. All right, so what's next on the agenda? Q&A? Okay, so I think at this point,